In the Studio, episode 97. Here we go. All right, so we all know that CPU performance is very, very important in music production. So in this video, I thought I would just share all of my tips for saving CPU in FL Studio and also give you a couple tips for improving performance in Windows. So let's get right to it. I'm going to start with the Windows tips. First thing that I would recommend that you get sorted is the power options. You want to make sure that's set to high performance. The next thing that you can do is let's go to the change plan settings and the advanced power settings, and under the processor power management and the minimum processor state, make sure that's set to 100%. And that will give you the best performance from Windows. Another thing to think about is maybe disabling any background running applications or apps, programs. Turn those off, and also you can cut out the internet, and that will give you some more resources as well. All right, so now in FL Studio, the first thing I'm going to talk about, and the obvious thing that you can do to save CPU, is bounce MIDI to audio. Personally, I really like working this way. Once I get a project ready for an arrangement, I usually will go through and bounce most things to audio. And this allows me to commit to my parts. It helps with my workflow, helps me move along with the project and not get bogged down and stuck in the loop. And also I can save these loops and phrases and ideas in my sample library and reuse them or go back to them in the future if I need to. So yeah, bounce things to audio. Okay, so let's also head into the audio settings here. So you want to make sure that you're using the proper drivers. If you have an audio interface, obviously use that driver. I use the Apollo Twin from UAD. If you don't have a audio interface, then you want to use the ASIO driver, which will give you a faster communication between FL Studio and your computer. So what you can also do to save CPU is increase the buffer length. It'll look a little bit different for you, maybe, but that's when you increase the buffer length, it will give you more CPU, but also introduces some latency. So that's not ideal for if you have to do some recording. So just keep that in mind. What you can also do is switch these buffer switches in, give you a little bit more power. And also the resampling quality, you can turn this down if you need to as well, save a little bit of CPU. It's not necessary to have it up high when you're just putting down ideas and creating and maybe doing arrangement stuff. So, and now another thing you can do is under the multi-threaded here, you can turn these on for the mixer and the generator processing, and that will allow your CPU to use all of the cores that are available. And also click this smart disable, you want to turn that on. So more on the multi-threaded processing. So under third-party plugins, what you want to do is, so this is FM8 from Native Instruments, under this little wrench tab here at processing, make sure that allow threaded processing is enabled. And then a little bit more on the smart disable. There's a macro for that. Under macro tools, macros, switch smart disable for all plugins, which is going to disable the plugin when it's not being used, which will save power. So I have found in certain instances where I have like a really long reverb and delay, and I have smart disable on that, it'll cut the delay tail or the reverb short. So if you're wondering if that's happening to you, check to see if smart disable is enabled. But for the most part, I keep it on all my plugins. I just wanted to throw that in there. Okay, so another thing that you can do, just make sure that you keep your projects tidy, and if you have a bunch of plugins open or in the channel rack that you're not using, get rid of them. They're eating up valuable RAM and power and CPU. So just delete anything that you don't need or anything that you aren't using. Another thing that eats up a little bit more CPU is when you use bridged plugins. So if you have a 32-bit plugin and you're using it in a 64-bit project, um, it'll still open, but it'll be bridged, which will use a little bit more CPU than it would normally. And it's not much, it's a little bit, but just keep it in mind. If you can avoid doing that, avoid it. Another thing that you can do to save CPU is lower the project PPQ, and that's found in the General tab, or Project actually, and it's right here. And this, if you lower that, it's going to decrease the resolution of the playlist, so you won't be able to zoom in. You won't have, but that is an option. I mean, I would do that as more of a last resort if you're desperado for CPU, but it is an option. Let's see. I think that's all of my tips for saving CPU in FL Studio. So yeah, that's the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. May the CPU be with you, my friends. Take care.